Um, when? Are you going to the show too? Oh, well, go Thursday night to see that. Yeah, I'll babysit. I'll put them with my dog and they can babysit my dog and. Yes, sir. Well, yes, you will need to take action once you listen to the options, because we have to proceed with the funding. The new schedule that I just handed out, in fact, I got that hot off the press right before I left. The county's first payment will be in July. This year. Look on the page, it says $10 million. Thought you went to change shirts. Is that, maybe you should ask Ms. Gillum. Is that, maybe you should ask Ms. Gillum. Very detailed.
Good to see you.
No, I'm trying to figure out what name you say.
Good to see you.
Oh, let's see. Don't you have to turn it on?
She turned them.
Why'd you turn my mic on?
Looking forward to finally getting this thing in the van.
Hey, you, sir.
Soon.
Oh, well, we are now back. Welcome to paradise.
They own the land. They own the land, you can't get on it.
Yeah, I knew your face. I just was at High Bridge. Who was it? With the band? Same night as the firefight. I'm like, I'm here to walk the bridge.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Did you do the firefight thing?
No, we just happened to go on the same night.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's time. I told Sue, well, Ken, I said, that's pretty good financial. She said, you have a lot of that. Getting sick.
That's everywhere.
Hereby call the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors workshop meeting to order. The board welcomes everyone that's in attendance. Glad to see all the smiling faces. And at this time, we'll have our pledge of allegiance immediately following our invitation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Father God, we just recognize you as being sovereign over all our lives and all that is the earth. We thank you for providing protection and provision for us. We lift up our Appomattox County EMS, our fire, and our sheriff's department, and their leaders as they serve to protect and serve, that you will give them wisdom and guidance in the decisions that they have to make, both as leaders and individuals on the field of service. We lift up this meeting to you. We ask that you provide wisdom to this body so we make decisions that are what this county needs and not what we need as individuals. We ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, first on our agenda for our work session, excuse me, school construction funding. Sam Anderson, Senior Vice President, Davenport and Company. Daniel Siegel, Attorney, Sands Anderson, PC. Staff requested that Jimmy Sanderson, Senior Vice President, Davenport and Company, LLC, and Dan Siegel, Attorney for Sands Anderson, PC, to remotely appear before the board to discuss options for funding proposed schools construction. Additionally, Mr. Sanderson will be discussing the board's consideration to adopt the attached reimbursement resolution. And Mr. Sanderson, and I see Mr. Siegel, yeah, I see Mr. Sanderson. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Is it hot in the capital city?
It is boiling over.
All right.
A lot of
Okay, we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the things that we wanted to just hit on today in particular, you've got in front of you, I think I saw Susan handing out the monthly payment schedules that the schools provided, I believe just today. So we're looking at that the same as you are. And so one of the things, just going back to the conversation we had the other month, that we talked a little bit with Ms. Adams after that meeting, that we would recommend sort of the process moving forward. We talked about the different options that the county has to finance your portion of the obligation related to the school project. And what we think is a good path to take is to go and get proposals from banks. And interestingly, this is the same process that we did a number of years ago with respect to a refunding. But get proposals, they're non-binding on the county. We do this all the time with local governments, and see what they look like. That process is very easy, it's quick. There's a lot less cost involved with it because it's a private transaction. And we would package those together and bring them back to the board. And so you can see exactly what the interest rates that we receive from the banks for whatever options we choose. And we talked about a couple of options with you before: 20 years level debt service payments. We also talked about doing interest only for some period of time and then doing level debt service after that for 15 years to get us past that hump where our debt service really drops off after about a 5-year period. And we can get different options from banks as well. Again, there's nothing binding with respect to them. If we come back with them and there's a proposal or one or two that looks like it's the right fit, given the time of execution and the interest rates and terms and conditions that the banks have, we can move forward and execute that transaction pretty quickly and have monies available for us as we get into the schedule that we're looking at that really has money starting to go out the door in the July timeframe. If we don't like those proposals, or we look at the other options at the time and they look better, understanding that there would be some time to execute those other options, whether they're through the Virginia Public Service Authority or whether they're through the sale of public debt just on behalf of the county itself, which again, we've done before. Then we can set those proposals aside from the banks and we can move forward with the other options that we have. And I think that in particular, the resolution that you have in front of you is going to give you some flexibility with respect to the choices that you make on the financing side of it. And I'm going to let Dan touch on the resolution, the legal side of what that will allow the county to do sort of in the interim when you may have costs associated with the project, but you don't necessarily have your financing in place. So that would be our thought, Mr. Chairman. Happy to hear, obviously, from your board if they have any questions about that. But moving sort of in that two-step process, let's go talk to banks, get firm proposals back from them, and then analyze what we get from them versus what our other options are in the market.
Yes, sir. Any questions for Mr. Sanderson at the present time? Well, we're ready for Mr. Siegel.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I think you have in your packet a reimbursement resolution, we call it. And there's, I think Ms. Adams forwarded to you the basic explanation. I'll just highlight that, and the county attorney, obviously, Tom's dealt with this a number of times, but the IRS regulations and the IRS rules allow you to pay for things with tax-exempt bonds. But if you pay for things before you issue the bonds, then you can't necessarily reimburse yourself for those costs. But if you adopt this type of resolution that refers to the regulations and refers to the fact that you plan to issue or you may issue tax-exempt bonds in the future that would reimburse you, then everything you spend from the day you adopt the resolution going retroactively back 60 days, anything you spend 60 days prior to, let's say, today, and going forward can be reimbursed from a tax-exempt bond issue, even though you've spent your general fund monies or your surplus or your unallocated reserves, or whatever you want to call it. So this resolution gives you that option, and you don't have to issue we put the $10 million number in there. If you want to issue less, that's fine. If you end up going more, we can revise it down the road, but this basically sets it in motion so that every penny can be reimbursed. And given really the schedule that the county administrator has shown you that the schools plan to spend, it's probably pretty important for you to adopt this resolution as soon as you can so that we can reimburse ourselves with the borrowing down in the future. But I'll be glad to answer questions or go through each of the paragraphs and the wording.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Siegel. Any questions for Mr. Sanderson or Mr. Siegel from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle.
my question would be to Mr. Latchy is to verify or say, yeah, what is in this resolution will do what Mr. Sander says.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Mr. Siegel is way more skilled at this than I am, but yes, I've looked at a bunch of these. These are very standardized resolutions, and it contains the normal language that you see in them.
Thank you. Any additional questions, concerns, issues?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
you may want Mr. Sanderson to talk a little bit about the VPSA funding and why we're having a comparison of the banks versus the VPSA and what timeline we're looking at.
Mr. Sampson, did you hear that?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay. What I was asking, Mr. Chairman, the board may want just a quick report on the VPSA funding and a timeline, and then why we're doing a comparison of the bank rates to the VPSA.
That makes sense.
Sure. Thank you, Susan. The VPSA is again, it's a state authority that local governments can borrow specifically for school projects in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they do pool programs. We talked about it a little bit the other month, where multiple jurisdictions will come to them through an application process, and they will package them all together, and they'll sell bonds in the public markets based on off of the state's credit. And that's a transaction that people do all the time. And the real question is a couple of things. It's a timing question. They only issue bonds twice a year. They generally in the spring and in the late fall is when they do it. So we oftentimes run into these types of analysis that we need to do for local governments, because one, you either they need the money. They don't necessarily have the reserves like you have to get them until that fall issuance. But then also there's some interest rate risk that you've got to take into account as well. So in no way does going out and talking to the banks preclude us from potentially going down that path with BPSA in the future. And so what we'll end up doing is, again, having the bank proposals in front of us, and then we will know what those are, but we will absolutely be speculating a little bit as to what the interest rates from BPSA may be come that fall timeframe. And really, I think you get money, Dan, it's probably late November is when you would actually have those funds. And so call it mid-November is when you would lock in those interest rates. So you would have from, say, mid-year this year until that November timeframe where interest rates could go up, they could go down, they could stay exactly the same. And so we would be showing you when we get the bids back from the banks what VPSA is, say, right at that point in time. And then if rates went up, what VPSA would be, or if rates went down, what it would look like as well. So we can make a decision with the bank proposals in hand with a little bit more understanding of what sort of the bird in hand is versus waiting until we get to VPSA. And it's a decision that you can make as a board, and we'll be able to give you as much of the information as you may want in order to gauge what's our risk related to interest rates and how that may impact our decision. And again, I think Dan was back at 17, maybe 18 with the county. Right. We did a very similar process. It wasn't with BPSA, it was with the Virginia Resources Authority. And we went out and got bank proposals, looked at what VRA was. Again, it's the same sort of process. It's a pooled program that the state does through VRA. And I think those interest rates were very close with the banks and the public sale. But the timing of it allowed us to lock in our rates at that time when we were meeting with the board through a bank loan. And the board at the time chose to move forward and execute the transaction with the bank. Again, just trying to get all the facts that we can on the table so that you understand what the differential in the interest rates may be and what that interest rate risk may be if you were to wait another 3 months or 4 months or so.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Thank
Is that
you.
what you were looking for, Susan?
Yes, because it looks like, according to the payment schedule, we'd be obligated to pay about $2.9 million and then be reimbursed after those bonds are funded. Is that correct?
That looks about right.
Okay.
And the resolution that Dan's put forth would allow you to be reimbursed for those expenditures as well.
So the only thing that we need to render tonight is adopting the resolution.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, we just like you as a board to know if we're going to go out and talk to banks and put together an RFP and send it out. We want you as a body to know that so that you're not caught off guard. You should know that we're doing that. And so Susan let you know that, but again, this was an opportunity for us to just confirm that and let you know what we're doing. And again, that we will bring those proposals back to you at some point in the future.
Okay. Any additional questions or concerns? If not, is there a motion to adopt this resolution before you?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan?
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution declaring our intention to reimburse ourselves from the proceeds of any tax-exempt financing that we may make in the future for reference capital projects.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, second.
Thank you. Additional discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it, as always.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Good to see everybody again.
Yeah,
You too.
good to see you.
Okay, next, gentlemen, is a Lynchburg Humane Society contract. Jan Walker, Executive Director of the Lynchburg Humane Society, appeared before the board to provide the 180-day notice that the LHS will not renew the terms in the existing lease. Respectively, LHS, yes, is proposing offer sheltering services for Appomattox County animals at their Graves Mill Road location in Lynchburg. Mrs. Walker reached out to staff requesting the county's intent in order to finalize the LHS proposed budget. If Appomattox County determined that this centralized approach is not a desirable alternative, services provided by Lynchburg Humane Society will cease as of October 20, 2021. Now, gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Abbott.
since this is a contract and it's pretty, gonna have to be negotiated, can we take this up in closed session since it is a contract?
Yes. Agreed, yes. Consensus of the board to move this to a closed session item. Okay. Now, believe it or not, we're 11 minutes ahead of schedule. So, therefore, we'll take an 11-minute break.
You can start on.
We can?
Yeah, you can start on.
Okay.
One on it, just, Kenny Gobble has requested we just read, that we send that back to the planning commission.
Yes. Yeah,
No, you can go ahead and do that, because you're in session.
okay. Okay, what Mr. Abbott was speaking of is item number 12. No, excuse me, you said the planning commission.
Do you want to set the agenda first, Mr. Chairman?
Well, we can. I think we're better. Okay. Any items to be added to the agenda? Or any items to be rearranged, if you will, Ms.
Yes.
Adams?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 appearances this evening, and I would like to move number 12, which is Sheriff Simpson, up to number 3, under appearances. I don't know if he's here yet or
I
not.
don't see him.
Okay.
You got the Commonwealth Attorney, are you gonna move him up to number 4?
And we've got Ann Dixon, is she appearing?
No.
Okay, so we're going to take care of that one. So, yeah, number 4, the Commonwealth's Attorney.
Okay.
Which was item 14.
14, yes. Okay. I'll be
Need a
with you.
motion to adopt the bond.
Yes.
Yes,
So
yes.
moved.
Is that a second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. 6, there it is, thank you.
The agent has just requested we send it back to the planning commission, because he wasn't able to attend, he was sick. I'm just reading what the summary says there.
Mm-hmm. Everybody,
If you want to take it up, I'll move, we send this, rezoning petition back to the planning commission.
okay, motion's made, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Okay. Back to you, Mr. Roy. You said we can take care of the consent agenda?
That, and also see the Carver Price Legacy Museum.
Yes, yeah,
We could go
okay.
ahead and approve that while they're here.
Okay. Which one is that, Mrs. Adams?
That would be number 7.
Boy,
Yes.
for revision.
Yes. Department of Historic Resources grant Carver Price Legacy Museum MOU and transfer of funds. Attached for our review is a memorandum of understanding from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources with the County of Appomattox and the Carver Price Legacy Museum for the administration of the FY 21-22 General Assembly Grant for Historic Preservation. The grant was awarded to the Carver Price Legacy Museum in the amount of $570,000 for the exclusive support of renovation of museum facilities. Note, DHR has transferred the fund to Appomattox County as a local government entity on behalf of the applicant. The Carver Price Legacy Museum, upon transfer of the funds from the county to the Carver Price Legacy Museum, the county will have completed its obligation as outlined in the MOU, and DHR will provide a copy of the final project to the county upon completion of the project by the applicant. Okay, the floor is open for discussion. Is there a motion then to move the $570,000 to the Carver Price Legacy Museum?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the transfer of funds.
Motion by duly made, is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any questions, issues, concerns? If not, have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle. Mr. Hips. Mr. Abbott.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
I also vote aye. While we're still going through this, item number 8, Proven Men Annual Skeet Shoot Event Application. Please see the attached event application from event organizers, Mike and Dexter Event Design and Proven Men Ministries, requesting to hold an event on August 28, 2021. The Public Safety Director, Building Official, Fire Marshal, Sheriff, Zoning Administration, Administrator, and County Administrator have reviewed, provided comments, and signed the application for permit issuance. Floor is open for any discussion on this topic.
Mr. Chairman, didn't we approve the same thing last year?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In that case, I would move we approve it.
Motion duly made, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, further? Hearing none, all approved, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Next. Property requested for surplus. The purchasing agent has attached for our review a list of items to be declared as surplus by the Board of Supervisors. These items will be publicly sold by the purchasing agent, and proceeds from the sale of these items will be deposited in the county's general fund for future use. Also attached is a list of assets that have been sold on government deals. And I hope you've had an opportunity to review the surplus list that's been attached. Any discussion?
I'll move that we approve the purchasing agent's recommendation.
Motion duly made, is that second? Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. go on down to number 10, Commissioner of the Revenue refund request. Mrs. Sarah Henderson, Commissioner of the Revenue, is requesting the following be paid from line item 1209/5803. 1, refund Gordon Ford $39.14 for 2020 personal property taxes paid. The vehicle was sold in 2019. I don't see, we can take all of these.
You can do them all together at one time.
Okay. Number 2, refund Eric Clifton King, $374.12 for 2020 personal property taxes paid, which was $258.01 from the first half of 2021 personal property taxes, which was $116.11. The cost of the item was erroneous in the system. And the third item is refund Terrell T. Sneed, $1,224.33 for 2016, 17, and 18 real estate taxes. Mr. Sneed qualifies for the veteran's exemption in which he owned the home and lived in Appomattox. So we have three requests for refunds. Any discussion on any of the three from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 3 refunds as requested by the Commissioner of Revenue in a total amount of $1,637.59.
Motion duly made, is there a second? Further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle. Mr. Hips. Mr. Abbott. Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. We have also a community development refund request. Mr. Lonnie Hamlet, billing official, is requesting the board's approval to refund Mr. Frank Irby Jones $86.19 for billing permit 210305. Due to the rise in the cost of lumber, the owner has decided not to construct the addition and the porch. We need a motion to approve the refund.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the refund of $86.19 to
86,
Mr. Jones.
$8,600, $86,
Second.
The second. Discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, I think we got 3 minutes, and I see the sheriff has entered the premises. Come on up, Sheriff. Request to purchase is asking board to discuss quotes for the interview room audio, video equipment, and to utilize the end-of-year funds to purchase the equipment.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening. This past year, the General Assembly passed new legislation requiring us to audio and visual record every interrogation conducted at the sheriff's office. So in the past, we have done that for most, but not all. So to comply with this new law, we must audio and visual record them. We had in the past a professionally installed VHS player was the last professionally installed system that we had. And we have piecemealed it over the years using DVR just off the shelf type stuff that does not work very well and would not be conducive to transferring that information to the prosecutor's office and that type of thing. So what I've done, I've got 3 quotes from 3 different companies. My recommendation is actually the cheapest one, and that's the one that the state police recently used. I have a packet here for each of you if you want to look over it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, thank you.
The first is the code section to which I'm referring to. The second is a letter of support from the Commonwealth's attorney stating the need and the requirement of that statute. Then you'll see the 3 quotes, and the one we like is called Star Witness is the company, and they are the cheapest, and their product is used in the area, particularly up at division headquarters. We've been able to have some savings this past year in vehicle maintenance. Basically, the money that we would have used to replace engines and transmissions and that type of thing. We've had good luck with the cars this year. It's just things you don't know. But we have not had to have any major engine replacements or transmission replacements. So that being said, I was able to save enough money to cover this cost. And Ms. Adams, I don't know if you have our most updated number for that line. Okay, I didn't check it, so. We're safe.
covers this.
We're safely in that range to cover this project. So my request would be to move that money from the vehicle maintenance line to the, whatever the most appropriate line would be in our categories to cover this cost.
Thank you. Is there any question from any board member? Mr. Hogan?
Just to clarify, the state didn't give us any money for these new
Oh.
unfunded mandates, correct?
No, that's
That's what I thought.
correct.
Okay.
This is a mandate where the scenario would be if we had a confession of a crime and it were not properly audio and visually recorded, it may not be admissible in court.
Good question. Yes, good answer.
So the number you need, Sheriff, is $9,984?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan?
I'll make a motion that we transfer $9,984 from the vehicle maintenance line item to the
Equipment 7001.
7001 line item for the sheriff's office to pay for this unfunded mandate from the state.
Very well said. Motion's duly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hips? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, due to the hour, we will go back for citizen public comment period. This time is provided by the board to allow citizens the opportunity to address the board on issues of importance to the citizen. No individual shall be permitted to address the board for more than 3 minutes. And we have that signed up, Mr. Wolfskill. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Ken Wolfskill, 1488 Poorhouse Creek Road. Just a little short thing concerning the facility that we have for the animal control operations that we may or may not be going to be using anymore. Just that taxpayers spent good money building that little facility, and it'd be a shame to see it sit there idle and just waste away. And I just wanted to float an idea to the supervisors. You guys are a lot wiser than me, but you guys can put your head together and figure it out. Maybe you could offer that for lease. Maybe to a veterinarian could use it if we're not going to use it. Maybe somebody could start an animal boarding facility there for profit. They could lease it from the county. And instead of sitting there, weathering away to nothing and good money just going to nothing, maybe we could turn it into bringing a little bit of money into the county. There's always need for more boarding facilities. And it actually is a really nice property, and a vet could do real well operating out of there, a small animal vet. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Very well put, and we appreciate you coming before us. Now, is it anyone that would like to address the board that failed to sign up?
I'll do it.
Yes, sir. Come on up. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Daniel Jordan, and I'm not a resident of Appomattox County. I'm at 102 Gates Farm Lane in Rice, Virginia. But I do want to come up here and address the board. So, Mr. Chairman, board members, I appreciate the time. I found out late in the evening that we had a board meeting, and so I want to come up here and introduce myself. I'm the park manager of High Bridge Trail State Park, and we are now officially in Appomattox County. And so we look forward to working with Appomattox County in getting the last mile of trail into Pamplin. And so we made the purchase about 11 months ago on 30 acres. And so we're a very small sliver into Appomattox. However, we are in the county now. And so we look forward to helping generate outside revenue dollars to the town of Pamplin and into Appomattox. And so we appreciate the support of the community, and we look forward to working with y'all.
Well, the board thanks you, sir. And the board also welcomes you, as I always say, to paradise.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So, I do thank you. And,
Yes,
and like I said, I make myself readily available, so if y'all have any questions or need to get a hold of me, please let me know. I'd be glad to entertain any questions or comments. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Board recognizes Dr. Paul Michael Raymond. Welcome, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Paul Michael Raymond, 2397 Appomattox, P.O. Box 2397 Appomattox. Thank you, gentlemen, counselor, ladies. The document that I had given to you, hopefully you have it before you, has been adopted by certain counties in the United States. Particularly, this model is from Newton County in Missouri, and it's also being considered throughout other counties in the states as a protection against the overreach of the federal government concerning the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. Now, I know we're all pretty familiar with history, especially the scriptures and their history. And we see that ancient history and our own modern history have given us fair warning as to any encroachment on our right to defend ourselves from the state's Leviathan overreach. And writing during the time of the American War for Independence, Adam Clark recounts the confiscation of weaponry in various times of history. And he says that beginning with ancient Israel, the cities that were surrounded by the Philistines, in order to ensure their domination, the Philistines carried away all their weapons. And what they did was they confiscated the weapons and gave them no defensive weaponry to ensure themselves against slavery. The Romans did the same thing, as did the Chalcidians in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus against the Lydians. So the historical record is replete with these warfare tactics of subjugation of those who are defenseless. So, gentlemen, ladies, counselor, the private citizenry of their means of defense is a mark of pure and unadulterated tyranny, and it must be resisted, especially as I addressed you a time before, through the interposition of the local magistrate. So whenever a people are deprived of their personal self-defense, both against wicked individuals, criminals, as you know, as well as wicked governments, which is why the Second Amendment was placed in the United States Constitution. If these things are taken away, then you have tyranny, always resulting in misery and death. So disarming a citizenry, disarming a people, is always the prelude to limitless abuse, and it always begins with finding out who owns the weapons through registration, because registration is the prelude to confiscation. And once wicked men know who has the means to wage a successful defense against subjugation, they can disarm those people as long as they know who they are. And this is done through either violence, as it was historically, or through legislative action, as we see throughout history. And of course, sadly, we're seeing this. We're seeing even an uptake in this in the legislation of the United States. It's very blatant now. Now, this strategy also includes the redefinition, and this is essential, of who the enemy is. Who is the enemy? Well, under every tyrannical government, the enemies are defined as anyone that disagrees with the powers of the state. The strategy also states that those enemies are no longer the folks out there in the nations of the world, but now they're defined as different. Now they're the Christians, the moral folks, the ones who cling to their Bibles and their guns, the people in the heartland of America, or the Republicans or the Libertarians or the Conservatives, or even the American patriots. So you ask the question, why these people? Well, because these people understand what true liberty is. They're family folk. They work hard. They are the blood and guts of America. They understand what it means to live in a constitutional republic. They understand, just by watching the news, even though they're silent for the most part, they understand what's happening because they can discern between good and evil. Now, freelance writer Jose Nino, writing for the Mises Institute, compiled these facts. And please,
permit me to share this with you. He says this: to maintain its iron grip, the Soviet Union had to turn to the most proven form of suppression, gun confiscation. On December 10th, 1918, the Council of People's Commissioner mandated that the Soviet citizens turn in their firearms. Failure to do so led to criminal prosecution. Once World War II came to an end, Eastern European countries took after their Soviet overlords and started implementing gun confiscation. Once the communists took power in 1944, in Bulgaria, they confiscated privately owned firearms. Private gun ownership was banned in East Germany. Hungarian communists dissolved all pistol and hunting clubs while also disarming other organizations that potentially posed a threat to government power, AKA the NRA. In 1938, Hitler signed a new Gun Control Act. And you heard that phrase almost daily in our news. Gun control, gun control. As a result, the Jewish populace was disarmed and had no way whatsoever of defending themselves against the increasingly militant Nazi political operatives. Castro also took advantage of firearm registration. The Venezuelan government in Venezuela started their long train of tyrannical abuses by passing the control of arms, munitions, and disarmament law. The day of reckoning came, however, when Venezuela banned the sale of firearms and ammo in 2012, very recent, under the guise of, and you've heard this before, fighting crime. Now Venezuelans have no way of defending themselves against the government that is free to muzzle their speech, expropriate their wealth, debase their currency, and starve them literally to death. South Africa also recently embraced gun confiscation when the court of South Africa ordered this confiscation of about 300,000 firearms on June 7, 2018, 3 years ago. Gun rights might not guarantee victory against tyrants, but being deprived of them all but guarantees submission. Now there's this book by R.J. Rummel, and it's called Death by Government. And he details in his book how the 20th century governments of the United Soviet, Russia, China, Germany, Japan, Cambodia, and you think about this, why the infatuation with China? So one might say, well, the Feds were fascinated with China because of economic opportunity. But that's not true. It's not true at all. They're fascinated with the Chinese government because the Chinese government have perfected how to control their citizenry, and that is always through disarmament. So he says that the USSR, China, Germany, Japan, Cambodia, Turkey, Vietnam, Poland, Pakistan, Yugoslavia, North Korea, Mexico, Indonesia, Mongolia, Romania, Angola, and of course Uganda under Idi Amin have wiped out those citizens that dissented. He says, quote, "Power is like a desolating pestilence. It pollutes and then it destroys everything that it touches unless it is limited by an armed citizenry." I believe that it is the duty of the Board of Supervisors, your duty, gentlemen, to protect the citizens of Appomattox, to act decisively to ensure the people's right to self-protection. So action should be taken. Waiting is not enough because the encroachment upon our liberties are very real and they're ratcheting up their encroachment daily. Now, I have spoken with Sheriff Simpson, and he's looked at the document that I have given you, this ordinance. It's not a resolution, it's an ordinance that I would like you to consider. He has concern about, on the second page, with item number 4, particularly number 4 and then number 4A. And that reads this: "Any and all federal agents trying to enforce the regulations listed in Section 1 shall be subject to arrest by the Appomattox County, Virginia Sheriff's Department." That's problematic for Sheriff Simpson, and I understand that, and I get it. He has colleagues in those law enforcement positions, and it would do well for him to work with them, not against them, as long as, and I hope he would agree, and I know Sheriff Simpson to be a man of integrity, a man of a constitutional integrity, in fact, and he would agree that as long as they are acting constitutionally and not tyrannically or wickedly, that he would work with them and not seek to run interference on their work. So here's my suggestion, gentlemen. This is a boilerplate document. Look it over. It must be acted upon. I believe it should be acted upon. I implore you to act upon it in some way, because this is coming. Whether we put our heads in the sand or not, it's coming. It's coming to Appomattox. It may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, it may not come this year, it may not come next year. But it's coming. Guaranteed. And history bears this out. And just because America is, the land of the free, the home of the brave, doesn't mean that it'll always be that way if we shirk our responsibilities. Let me read this before I close. And this is from Thomas Jefferson. He said, "No free man shall ever be debarred of the use of arms. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." So, gentlemen, again, look this over seriously, take careful consideration, and I hope that you'll look at this and make the necessary changes, additions, subtractions, whatever you see fit. I would implore you also to work with Sheriff Simpson. He is the executive officer of Appomattox County. You are the legislative body. You make the laws. He enforces them. I encourage you to work with him because he's got a good handle on this. So the adoption of this ordinance, at least in its general format, will move us in the right direction. So I thank you so much for your attention, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mayor Sarah Blackwell, Town of Pamplin. Welcome, ma'am.
Just sat down. There we go. I wanted to thank the board for permitting me to come and speak with you tonight. I do come with a request for the town of Pamplin. You have met Mr. Jordan previously. We have come to respectfully request an amount from the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors with us assisting the park coming into Pamplin. I believe you guys have some things in your packet in regards to some itemization. There is one clarification to that. The total request amount is for $58,855, not $66,355. So for the total of the $50,000 is for the engineering and grading and construction portion for a 1-acre plot of land that is still owned by the town of Pamplin. That will be the parking lot and trailhead for the High Bridge Trail State Park. And the other amount, in the amount of $88.55, was for the construction of a pavilion. And that is a request. Again, this is helping us to work with the parks so that we can get, the trail all the way into town, which is, from an economic redevelopment of the Pamplin area, it is very vital.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Abbott?
we approved money, over money of $7,500 for the clearing of the lot. Is that right?
The
Okay.
item number 1.
So that's been approved.
Okay.
Now, we get more COVID money in the next 2 weeks. Is that right?
We have, yes.
That could be applied to this.
Okay.
Now they would have to come out of that general fund.
Okay. I was under the understanding that we were requesting it from the previous COVID money that had been placed into special projects.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hope?
Yeah, there was some leftover money that we reimbursed ourselves for salary expenses, I think from the sheriff's office, which was a reimbursable expense from the first round of COVID money. And at think at the time, we had said we would set aside that, I think it was around $700,000. We would set aside that for special projects. I think this would be a special project, special one-time use project, one-time expenditure product. I think this is an economic development project. I think this is, Mr. Jordan is, said the trail's in Appomattox County now. Well, they own the land, but you can't get to it because you got to have a trailhead first. So I think this would be a worthwhile investment, the $50,000 to clear and grade and get this site prepped and ready so we can have a trailhead. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, is that the intention is once this site is prepared, the town owns it now. The town's going to give it
To the parks.
To the park. But the park can't take it in the condition it's in.
Correct.
So this would enable us to work with the town, with the park system, to get that park open in Appomattox County. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did the $7,500, was that included in the 5,000
In the
total?
50, yes, it was,
50,000, I mean?
yes, it was in the 50, in the 50,000, yes.
So I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we allot the town of Pamplin $50,000, whether out of that rollover where we reimbursed ourselves last, well, I guess that would have been this fiscal year?
Yes,
Or out of the general fund, that's where it went, right?
it's in the general fund.
I would make a motion that we allot $50,000 to the town of Pamplin for preparation, site clearing, and to prepare a trailhead. And that money come out of the general fund.
Motion duly made. Is there a second?
And if I may follow up on that, I know we got some money coming, but we don't know what the restrictions on that money is. And I don't want to wait another 3 or 4 months, find out we can't use it on that, and then we pass the deadline where we can get somebody in there and get the work done.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Abbott?
I fully support the 50,000, but I think we ought to wait at least 1 month. That much new money will be here, hopefully within 10 days to 2 weeks. And if we could take it out of the new money that's coming to it, I think it'd be better than taking out of the general fund. And we've got the 750 that they can start with the clearing of the lot. And I noticed in their contract, I believe it would take 30 days. I don't have any trouble doing it, but I certainly would like to take it out of the new federal money we'll be getting rather than the general fund.
You said the arrival of the money should be probably within the next couple of weeks.
Now,
We've requested it, yes, from the Department of Treasury.
And I've said this, Mr. Chairman, if it's not here, we can't do it under that money in the next meeting, then I would support the vote. To get it out of that money we set aside. But I'm hoping we could get it out of the new money.
Okay, the motion's still on the floor. Is there a second?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was going to just bring up a point of order. It seems like we're having a discussion before we have a second to the motion.
Well, actually, Mr. Abbott sort of didn't call it a motion, but it's a motion to defer, which kind of supersedes the previous motion. So now you have to vote on the motion to defer first.
Okay,
I'll second the motion to defer.
okay.
With the understanding that we will approve this with new COVID money. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
It was a motion to defer to the next meeting is what I heard.
Well, there's a bit of language in there.
And my hope, Mr. Chairman, was if we can't use the new COVID money, then we would do it. Or go with it. And I would support that.
Yes, I would,
But
I
you
would
have
too.
7,500 to start.
Okay, so the 7,500's approved, and then the remaining would be at the next meeting?
Okay, motion made and second. Let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like clarification. I'm confused. What exactly is the motion now?
Okay,
The motion was to defer the authorization of the additional expenditure till the next meeting with the hope that the federal money would be here, and if not, it'll come out of the general fund. But it's,
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
stating correctly what Mr. Abbott said, I believe I am.
So, Mr. Hinkle.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, I got a question before we vote. So there's a question about the $7,500. Have we approved that somewhere else? Because I don't remember that.
The CARES Committee approved it, and we had it on that.
That's already been done.
Yes.
Okay.
All you've got to do is appropriate the funds for it.
Have we appropriated the funds?
No.
Mr. Hibbs,
Motion to defer.
for next meeting.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize he had already said.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Mr. Abbott. Mr. Hope.
No.
I also vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we appropriate the $7,500 already approved to the Pamplin tank. I guess that's who it is.
Motion
Second.
been made, second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Abbott. I can also vote aye. All right, Mayor,
I'd like to thank the
Thank
board
you.
for your time and consideration.
well, thank you. Okay, we got a couple more minutes that we can enter into another section.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fleet is here.
Mr. Fleet is here. All right. Mr. Fleet, our Commonwealth Attorney, come on up. Come on down. Yeah, that's even better. I like that even better.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is this on my request for transfer of funds?
Yes, sir.
All right. I can't hardly hear back there. What I've requested is in this current year's budget that will end the end of this month. I had set amount of money, I believe it was $4,000 set aside for training. Due to COVID, they did a lot of the, they did away with a lot of the training. They did have some remote trainings, but a lot of the remote trainings did not qualify for CLE. So a lot of my prosecutors still need CLE credits. They did open, with the lifting of most of the mandates, they did lift the restrictions on the summer conference that our office normally attends. Unfortunately, the summer conference is the most expensive training that the Commonwealth Attorneys Association has. So what I'm asking is for a transfer of the funds. I believe there's probably, if not the 4,000, then just, it's over 3,000 left in the training budget for this budget year, be held over to next year's budget year to combine with the training money there so that I can send my 3 prosecutors to the summer conference. I will stay back here and man the shop, and they will go to the summer conference. Otherwise, that's really going to strap us, and it's right in that in-between time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members?
Just to be clear, you're asking for 5,500 to be transferred.
Whatever's left in that, I ask that it be held over and transferred into next year's budget. There's no new monies.
You have any doubt on that, Ms. Adams?
It looks like there's 5,500 in that line item.
Okay. Any other, Mr. Abbott?
Whatever the amount is that's in that for training this year, I move we appropriate it for next year's budget for training in the coming year.
Motion duly made, is that second?
Second.
And second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hibbs.
Aye.
Mr. Abbott.
Aye.
Mr. Hope.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Have good training.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we can move right on now to our public hearings. Public hearing, VDOT 6-year plan. FY 2022 through 2027. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay. Susan, everybody has a copy of the draft, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's in the book.
It's in the book, okay. Gentlemen, we won't take much of your time tonight. Our proposed six-year improvement plan for the secondary roads in Appomattox County. It's not a long list, it's a fairly short list. All of our projects in the six-year plan are pretty much unpaved road projects. No regular construction projects, as they do not receive their funding through the unpaved road funds that we get for Appomattox County. If you look on the first page, you'll see the dollars, the allocations for FY '22 and the projected allocations for the next 5 years. And as you can see, we don't get a big chunk of money for unpaved roads in Appomattox County simply because there's not as many left as it used to be. This year, we're looking to get $44,548 in telefees and $110,813 for unpaved road fees. If you look on page 2, you'll see a project on there that has been completed, Cub Creek Lane. That project was completed last year, and the reason it's still in the plan this year is because it hasn't been financially closed, and we are paying off the project with this year's allocations. The most important thing in the plan are the next two projects. Dreaming Creek Road, you'll see that's Route 605. This project has worked its way through the six-year plan, taking it probably 6 or 7 years to get here. This is a single route, but due to its length, it was split into two sections, a 1.2-mile section and a 1.1-mile section. We do anticipate constructing that road next year in FY 2023, and in the following year, construct the second project. That's really the only construction projects that are in the six-year plan. And we also have some countywide items in here. You'll see some construction, engineering and survey, countywide right-of-way engineering charges. And we use those to fund any kind of like miscellaneous costs that come up regarding any surveying that we need on secondary routes or right-of-way acquisition if we have say we have a old section of secondary road that, a action that needs to be taken on, and that, we need some money to do some recording fees or something, and that happens sometimes. The most widely used countywide item is your traffic services, and we use these funds to put up new signs on secondary roads, and if we have a secondary road that say might need some guardrail or something, we'll use that fund to pay for new guardrail installation. And then also you'll see, lastly in the last line, a Appomattox countywide drainage improvements, and that is some secondary money we set aside to when we have a pipe failure or we need to improve a pipe on the secondary road system that really isn't maintenance. So we use that fund also. And that's the plan. Like I said, it's not as interesting as it used to be because we used to have some real good projects in here and some big dollars, but that has been a while back. Susan, they have the unpaid road list also. The second item here is a list, a unpaid road or rural rustic priority list. And what this list is, as we complete projects in our six-year plan and they become funded, and we need additional projects to pull up to fund money to, this is a list of roads that people have requested, and this list right here is where we pull our new projects off to go in the six-year plan. So once Dreaming Creek is 605 is completed, The next project that would go into the 6-year plan is Hancock Road, and Route 644. The next one would be Cedar Bend, Road 675, and then another section of Hancock Road. And, generally, these routes are prioritized generally by the board, and this has been an existing priority from past boards, and we have, so this is pretty much an update to list. We can change this list at any time you all want to. It's your prerogative to redo the priority. But anyway, that's what this list is right here. This really has, I don't say it has nothing to do with the 6-year plan, but it gives us something to work off of that has the input from the Board of Supervisors, as well as any citizens or constituents that have requested their road be paved. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has.
Any question from any board member?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hogan?
Mr. Brown, if I could ask Mr. Brown, so on the rural rustic list, it's showing those 3 roads that have been on there for a while, it totaling around $600,000 to get them paved.
Yes.
Am I reading it right, that there's actually $858,000 worth of funding over the next several years?
Over the next 6 years.
It says funding based on project allocations through fiscal year '27, $858,000.
Yeah, that's the projected allocations for those years.
So it wouldn't be unreasonable to add a road that might be, let's say, a mile long that's unpaved and get it on this list.
No, not really, not really. If it worked into the plan, and, I don't know, I see, if you look, the last 2 years of our allocation have not been programmed. And I didn't go over this when I was going on, but if you look at the item in line 204 and 205, you'll see what our allocations are right there, Mr. Hogan. That is money that has not been programmed in FY '26 and FY '27. So could we have programmed another project? We could have. But, when you get to the 5th and 6th year of the plan, it's so far out, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I'm saying these allocations could change. Any of these projected allocations other than what you get in FY '22, they're just projections. So that's why we really not concerned if we take it out the full 6 years.
And isn't it, has it been our experience that usually you get something on a 6-year plan, it usually gets done before 6 years?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay.
But I will say this. In past years, we were always completing balances from completed projects, sweeping funds, and, it pretty much isn't anything laying out there that we need to sweep now. So we really, you are somewhat correct that in the past, we had projects that had not been closed out, that had balances on them. And, when we swept them, pulled them, we could advance, another project.
Gotcha.
But we follow this list right here.
Okay.
I mean, when you approve this 6-year plan and you approve this priority list, it stays the same unless the board changes it. And, we don't, I don't change it. I do not change it. Because that's the priority, and y'all base these decisions on people that have come to you and requested their roads be hard surface. So, this will not be changed unless you all change it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions for Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle?
Hancock Road being in my district, and I've traveled it several times, I haven't been on it in the last 6 months, but I know the loggers have really tore up that dirt road, previously. And is there any way you could move that road up?
Not unless you move 605 back.
I guess I won't ask the board to do that, because
Well, I will say this, I went through Hancock Road maybe a month ago, and it is in very good shape.
okay.
You're right, it's been a lot of logging activity on that road, but when I went through there, I thought it was in excellent shape. And, we put a lot of maintenance replacement stone on it, and it was in very good shape. So unless it's fallen apart in the last 3 to 4 weeks, it should still be in pretty good shape.
Like I said, it's been a couple months since I've been on it, so.
Well, if you ride back through there and you see something different, just give me a call.
And then my other question would be, you talk about, drainage. The bump we have on 460 is, do you have any projection on when that's going to be repaired, where that lake flooded and over 460 there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are waiting. We have a hourly paving contractor. And a couple of weeks ago, he did some paving work on us up in Campbell County, and he had to leave and go to another area for about 3 weeks. It's my understanding he's coming back shortly. I say a few weeks ago. I look for that to be fixed in the next couple of weeks. I don't know the exact date, but it is planned to come in there with our hourly paving contractor to mill and fill that bump in.
What about, doesn't the culvert under there need to be replaced? Because isn't that
No, it's a
culvert
box,
sinking?
it's a box culvert. Actually, the box culvert is a little further east than where the bump is. I presume that, that pavement's settled because of, the flooding and, maybe, it scoured on the pavement a little bit, maybe where we couldn't see it or either. But it could have been a animal hole that got blowed out, when that water got so high. But that is not over the concrete box culvert under 460.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank you, Mr. Brown. Always appreciate your time.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Mrs. Elna Johnson. Welcome, ma'am. Just state your name and address for the record. No, take your time.
I'm Eleanor Johnson. I live at 125 Hawk Lane in Pamplin. And I'm here to ask you all for some help. I was diagnosed in 2009 with COPD. And I have been working between the state and the EPA and Bill Hogan to do something about the dust. On the little short road that I live on, it's not but 3/10 of a mile. And the dust will nearly kill you. We have 8 residents, and each residence has at least 2 cars, some more than that. And we have a lot of in and out traffic. Goes in, stays about 5 minutes, and back out. And that goes on day and night, all through the night. I have talked to the EPA, and I've talked to the state. And as I said, this has been going on since 2009, long time. And it's gotten to where you cannot even go outside and enjoy your own patio. Can't stay in the yard. The dust is terrible. And I have finally found out in the last 3 or 4 years that it's up to the Board of Supervisors. And like I said, I've been going back and forth between the state, Bill Hogan, and EPA to finally learn that you all control what gets done on the county roads. So I'm here tonight just asking you for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this, during this public hearing? Anybody opposed? Mr. Hope?
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to echo Ms. Johnson's comments that, yes, she has brought that to my attention, and I've brought it to Mr. Brown's attention before. And I would like to see Hawk Lane put on this list to get that section of road paved. I'd like to see it done sooner rather than later. I know there's other projects that have been on the list longer, but this is probably less than half a mile. Lawrence, do you know the road number?
709.
709. It's down below Rock's Church on the left, dead-end road. But it's a short road. It shouldn't take a lot of money to get it paved. I'd like to see it put on the list, and I'd like to see it brought up as far as it could be brought up.
Okay. Mr. Brown, do you have any comment?
The only comment I have is, it has a vehicle count of 60 vehicles today, and it does qualify for the rural rescue project. And it does qualify, so the board's pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So I guess the next question is where we put it.
Yes, that is.
I don't want to knock Mr.
Mr.
Hinkle's
Hinkle?
Hancock Road out of the equation. They've been waiting a long time, but so has the folks on Hawk Lane. And they just didn't know that they had to come to us to get it on the list.
It said it was a half a mile, about a half a mile.
It's, our mileage shows it in 3,500.
3,500, okay.
So less than half a mile?
Okay. But we'll take that up then after the public hearing.
When you vote.
Yeah, when we vote. Any others like to speak? Okay, hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Now, while we're on this, while it's fresh in our minds, is there a motion then to enter Hawk Lane on the 6-year rural rustic priority list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Brown,
We'll add that to the list.
thank you.
And if there's any possible way we could, if there's some leftover funds that might pave a third of a mile,
I'll go look at it.
they won't affect these other ones that's already on the list. Because you can't pave, these 2-mile roads for what it would cost to pave that third of a mile. I understand that. And I don't want to take money from those projects, but I think we could find some money somewhere to get that one taken care of.
I'll take a look at it and see what.
Thank you. That's all we can ask.
Thank you, sir. Next, public hearing on the Carver Price Legacy Museum lease agreement.
Number 2 is adopt the plan as presented.
Wait a minute, rooster's crowing. There, I was just ready to start on the third. What'd you say, number 2?
Adopt the plan, the construction estimated plan on the first page of the.
Oh,
bill.
yes, excuse me, miss, yes. Okay, after receiving public comments on the secondary 6-year plan for fiscal years 2022 and 2027, and the secondary system construction budget for fiscal year 2022, we need to approve or adopt both of these plans. Is there a motion?
So move as amended, we adopted as amended.
Is that okay? Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Adams. Next is the public hearing on Carver Price Legacy Museum lease agreement. After being duly advertised, the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors, in accordance with Code of Virginia 15.2-1811B, will hold a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments on the proposed changes to the Carver Price Legacy Museum lease. Mr. Latchney is available to address questions and or concerns. Anyone here to speak in favor of this?
I will.
Mr. Jones? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Don Jones. My address is P.O. Box 229, 264 Vine Drive, Concord. I do live in the county. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Carver Price Museum. I worked diligently along with Ms. Orr McCoy and Ms. Annie Trent to rework the lease. And thank you, Ms. Adams, and thank you, Mr. Latchney, for the efforts that you put forth into this lease. As you well know, earlier this evening, you appropriated $570,000 for the museum. This lease, the changes in this lease, I have to be honest with you, is probably one of the best leases I've ever seen. In the leniency of the lease, in the favor, it doesn't show to Carver Price, but the way the provisions of the lease are written, it just proves to me that there is a lot of input here on the success of this museum. Now, the one thing that this lease will do, it will also help get this building on the National Register of Historic Buildings. That's being funded by the state, but to do that, we had to have the lease changed to reflect the Carver Price Legacy Museum as a lessor or lessee. And it had to be at least 5 years. And with those changes, within the next probably a year, less than a year, that museum will be on the National Registry of Historic Buildings, which is a major, as I look at it, achievement here in Appomattox County. And with the money that was appropriated tonight, you will see some definitely changes to that building very shortly. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Any questions?
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this? Anyone here to speak against it? Okay, hereby close this public hearing. Now, we can vote on this while it's fresh in our minds. So, after review of public comments, consider approval of the changes to the Carver Price Legacy Museum revised lease. And if anybody has any questions, we have Mr. Latchney here to.
I'll give you a quick, just so you know, the most significant change in the lease is replacing the lessee from the Alumni Association to the 501c3 that's been formed. So we're replacing the lessee, and then also we made provision for that $570,000 and the methodology for including that in the upgrades. So those are really the only meaningful changes to this lease from the previous one you approved.
Anyone have any additional questions for Mr. Latchney and on this subject, Mr. Hogan?
Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty sure I read it in here. I just want to confirm. There is a way, I don't foresee it happening, but should we ever need that property back, for some reason, there is a way out of the lease if the county needs it. And that's a big if, but I just want to make sure that I've read it in here somewhere.
What's a 5-year term? It's on page 4, I believe it is, yeah.
Okay, so
It's
It's automatically renewed
It's
unless-
automatic renewing unless either side gives 60 days notice.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the lease as revised.
Motion duly made, is there a second? Further discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hips? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. All right. Next, gentlemen, we'll move down to action items. FY 2022 Budget Appropriation Resolution. Attached for our review and consideration for approval is the FY 2022 Appropriations Resolution effective July 1, 2021. Floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I take it we'll appropriate this all at one time this year instead of quarterly, Ms. Adams?
Yes, unless the board chooses to appropriate quarterly.
Any reason?
The only reason we did last year because the uncertainty of COVID.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we appropriate the fiscal year 2022 budget in the amount of $43,850,902.
Motion made, is there a second? Further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hips? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
All right, I also vote aye. Okay, next we have a rezoning petition, RZ 210301. Mr. Danny Booker has petitioned. I thought that would, yes, number 6.
Item 13, I think is where we are.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Item 13, Community Economic Development. Please transfer by consent $5,000 from 8105, stroke 1003 part-time, and supplement to 8104, stroke 1001, salaries and wages, to cover the payroll expenses for the Economic Development Director. Any questions, any concerns, any issues? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
That second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hips? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan? I also vote aye. Next is item 15, assessor and reassessment. Please transfer by consent $432 from the 1101 stroke 5804 operating reserve and supplement to 1210 stroke 1003 Board of Assessors clerical. That's 1. 2, please transfer by consent $33.04 from 1101 stroke 5804 operating reserve and supplement to 1210 stroke 2001 FICA/Medicare benefits. No funds were appropriated to this department, and the part-time clerical position encumbered hours to finalize paperwork. Discussion? Did you want to speak on this at all, Ms.?
The only thing I would like to add, there was not anything appropriated to this budget for FY '21, but as a final paperwork process, the clerical position had to come in and work a few hours.
Okay.
So it's a
Any
matter of
questions?
transfer.
Thank you. Any questions? Concern? Is there a motion to approve this?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the transfer of these funds.
Thank you.
432 from operating reserve to assessor and 3304 to Medicare.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? We have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hips? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan? I also vote aye. Next is Courthouse Security Fund. Please transfer by consent $15,420 from the Courthouse Security Fund to the general fund and supplement to 3102-1006 courthouse security position. Any comments, Ms. Adams?
This is money transferred from fees and fines, general fund, designated fund, to this line item to cover courthouse security. So it's law enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, concerns? If not, is there a motion to approve $15,420 from the courthouse security fund to the general fund?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is that second? Second. Discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle? Aye. Mr. Hibbs? Mr. Abbott? Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next, gentlemen, and we have some literature before you, lighting of the ball field. At the May meeting, Ann Dixon appeared before the board to request funding to light a third field at the sports complex. Prior to authorizing the request, the board requested Mrs. Dixon speak with the Girls Softball Association to see if they would utilize the field, if lighted. Mrs. Dixon's report will be distributed at the meeting, and you have it before you. And she's not here, is she?
No, she's not.
Okay. So you have Mrs. Dixon's reply. And I thought very well that she spoke with the person. And that the young ladies appreciated the offer to have priority on Field 3, but the girls were happy with the field Spell Spring Rueton Club, and they had a great relationship with the Spell Spring Ruetons. So we don't need to do anything.
Just approve the project, and I think she asked for an additional $20,000 to be appropriated out of county funds to completely cover all expenses.
Oh. So she's asking $20K?
At the May meeting, whatever that number is, sorry, I don't have it before me. I thought it was in the letter.
I thought we approved that.
Well, it was contingent upon talking to the girls softball.
They talked to them and everything's okay.
So, no, nothing. Mute.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
And they use it for practices and they use it when they want to, so.
That's right.
exactly. Moving right along, committee appointments. But the, excuse me, the Board of Zoning Appeals appointment. At the May 17th, 2021 meeting, the board tabled on the June meeting, the Board of Zoning Appeals appointed recommendation to the judge. This position will fill the unexpired term of James Cheatham, ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Hinkle submitted the following nomination. Mr. Bradley Driscoll Jr., who resides at 4405 Salem Road, Spell Spring, Virginia. Mr. Driscoll is currently employed at Moore's Machine Company. Discussion? If not, is there a motion to appoint Bradley Driscoll to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Mr. Chairman, since I made a nomination, I'd be remiss in not making the motion.
Okay. Motion duly made. Is that a second? Okay, hearing none. We're going to consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approval of bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, and fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the vote of the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in the order to which they were removed from the consent agenda immediately following consideration of the current or the consent agenda. Any items that any member would like to have clarified, or issues or concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion duly made. Is there a second? Second. Discussion? We have a roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle. Aye. Mr. Hips. Aye. Mr. Abbott. Aye. Mr. Hogan. Aye. I also vote aye. And gentlemen, let's back up just 1 second, go into reverse. We need to bring this subject back up on the Board of Zoning Appeals back in our July meeting, excuse me. All right, Mr. Latchney.
Mr. Chairman, you should have in front of you a proposed ordinance on animal control. Kayla had asked me to, yeah, she said she put it up in front of everybody. Yeah. I was asked by the county administration to draft this for your consideration. Basically, what it does is it creates a civil penalty for not getting your dog or cat rabies vaccinated and not getting a license for your dog. I just plugged in some random numbers. You know, you can put whatever numbers you want for the civil fine. But the primary reason this is in front of you tonight is whether this is something of interest. Basically, what you get, the civil penalty, think of it like a traffic ticket. The animal control officer would just take a ticket book out if your dog doesn't have a rabies vaccine, that you can't prove that they have the vaccine, and they can just prepay the fine. Because the way it works now, you wind up paying, getting the vaccine, then going to court, and usually the judge will dismiss it, but it takes a half a day, everybody's time to go. So the suggestion was that we go to a fine process, go get the vaccine, prepay the fine, and that it would be a streamlined way of dealing with these. And again, the dollar amount of the fine, I just stuck the numbers in there. You guys would have to decide what's an appropriate fine. But the first decision is whether this is something you're even interested in moving forward on.
Okay. Thank you. So we need to take and digest this and
Yes.
talk about it in July.
To digest it, if you have any questions, email them to me or call me, and we can talk about it and then take it up in July and maybe give us some thought to what's an appropriate first offense fine and subsequent offense fine, that sort of thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other items?
No, sir.
Ms. Adams.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have,
Ms. Adams, can you hold on just a second? I apologize.
yes, sir.
What I want to know is the Times Virginian journalist here? Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I wanted to include in my report, there was an article in the paper that had some comments that may have appeared to be negative to some community citizens. And so as a result of that, I'd like to provide clarification to the press and to the board members in case there's any question, and then allow opportunity for questions or comments if you need to respond after that. First of all, there was some question about the county not responding to a joint meeting with the town council. And what I've tried to do is just document the facts surrounding all of these situations and hopefully rectify any issues, if there are any, that existing as a result of the article. So for a joint meeting, although there's been no notification, I have discussed the next steps in coordinating a joint meeting with several town representatives. The facts surrounding the meeting are this. Chairman Carter prepared a letter addressed to Mayor Connor requesting a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors and hand-delivered the letter to the town office on Friday, February the 5th. Staff reported at the last meeting that Mayor Connor responded on March the 18th requesting the board's submission of an invitation for suggested dates and a detailed agenda prior to final discussion to meet. After receipt of the suggested agenda items and dates from the board, the mayor will respond with acceptance of the agenda items by the council. The county had one agenda item to be discussed, and then we basically got busy with school construction, debt financing, end-of-year audit, additional budget requests, and we haven't had the opportunity to discuss additional agenda items. So after thinking about it, how we should proceed, and participating in generalized discussions may be a start. If the town accepts, it may be a good idea to plan a joint picnic work session, whereas at that time, both bodies could decide on agenda items that would be appropriate to discuss during a joint work session of both bodies. Are there any thoughts on that? Would that be something that this board would want to entertain? Would to have a picnic and some type of work session with the town council to talk about suggested agenda items? and then at a later time, have a scheduled formal work session.
I think it's great. You get something to eat and see your fellow comrades.
Yeah, I think a lot of members have changed and probably, everybody just doesn't know each other. So that would be an opportunity to make that happen. The next thing, there were some comments about the fire department funding. And I have included in the board book the letter that was sent to the town manager, Mr. Schanneberger, as well as a response that we received from the town that they would support the funding. And as a result of that, I'm sure this body is happy to know that the town has agreed to partner, because the total intent of this board was to send a letter extending the opportunity for the town council to collaborate on a valued community public safety project. And it's an effort to purchase safety equipment for our firemen, such as we did Cortlandt Park project. The two bodies partnered on it, and now we have a successful project. It also states in the letter that may not have been commented on, but when the request was submitted to the Board of Supervisors for CARES funding for the breathing apparatus, it was suggested that we provide 10 masks. Our committee and this board decided that to make sure that every fireman is protected, that they would purchase 33 masks. Therefore, the county purchased 33 masks so that each fireman would have their own individual mask, and there would be no sharing of any equipment or any cross-contamination. And those masks cost $9,986. Bobby Wingfield, the Public Safety Director, is overseeing the project with the distribution of the mask. We purchased fit testing equipment so that we will not have to pay someone to come into the county and fit the firemen for the mask. And I think Mr. Garrett has gone through the training with Mr. Wingfield, and they've been customized so that each firefighter has their own individual mask. Also, there was some question about the funding, that maybe the county doesn't support the fire department as much as some people think that we should. So I've got some data to kind of surround that. And since I've been here in 2015, I can't attest to anything prior to that. The county has funded the fire department a total amount of $942,541. In addition to that, the county committed another $250,000 toward the purchase of a new fire truck. Hopefully, this information corrects any misconceptions that were communicated in the paper. I honestly believe that all of us, the county, the town, continue to be a united Appomattox, and we are all here for the same purpose, to serve the citizens of Appomattox. There was some question about dispatch calls, county versus town, and some formulas. So I pulled some data from dispatch that said in the year 2020, a total number of 232 calls were addressed by the Appomattox Volunteer Fire Department. Out of that, 81 calls were in-town calls, which is 35% of their calls. So I've prepared a report that has that number and that data on it so that you can view it if you'd like. The other thing, that there was a question about the county possibly charging food taxes, lodging taxes. And I will say that the county does not impose a local food tax, a local cigarette tax, nor a local lodging tax. As of March 31st of this year, the town has received $959,677 from the town's local food tax, which is expected and reported by Kim Ray to be $1.279 million for FY21, and almost $50,000 from the town's lodging tax. And I will reiterate that that is not a county-imposed tax. So I hope this addresses the information that was in the article. If there is anything else that you would like to know or would like for me to report on or research, if you would let me know, I'll be happy to do so. So I have some other things I'd like to report. All of you should have received the library director handbook. If you did not, please let staff know. And that was suggested at the last meeting. Also, you should have received an email that the sheriff communicated about the trash pickup, and the trustees are performing that, and all of that's resumed. And I think you got a report on how many bags they picked up. Staff requested the county's local fiscal recovery funds through the U.S. Treasury portal. Our first payment of $1.5 million is being processed for payment, and that's the fund we were talking about earlier. And once the funds are received, the committee should resume to review any requests that we received. Next year, we'll receive a payment in the same amount. Also, staff completed and submitted all the necessary paperwork for the MOU with Carver Price, and as reported, that money has been received and will be distributed to the Carver Price Legacy Museum. So we're all excited about that project and looking forward to seeing the end product. Something that you need to keep in mind, the 87th Annual VACO Conference is November the 14th through the 16th at the Hilton Norfolk. It's not at the Homestead this year. The venue has changed. The location is no longer at the Homestead. So if any of you are interested in attending that conference, please let staff know within the next few days so we can go ahead and register you. Ms. Phelps submitted a delinquent tax report, the first half of the billing, which would be at 50%, and out of that, 49.61% has been received in real estate collections and 44.98% in personal property collections. So that's a very good rate. I know she's proud of that. Also, next month at the July meeting, we will be making the library board appointments and the social services board appointments. So expect that on the agenda, and you may be thinking of someone to fill those positions. And last, I appreciate Kayla and Wanda working with me last Thursday on their Juneteenth holiday to assist Robinson, Farm and Cox, the auditors, with the county's pre-audit. So that has been completed until November. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
First, thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
Thank you for a factual report. And number two is, to your knowledge, and this was quoted, has the town ever bailed out the county? I'm asking that as a courthouse district supervisor.
I've been here since 2015, and I don't recall a time that has happened.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Hinkle?
Yeah, I have a question on Mayor Richard Connor's question about why the town didn't get half of the CARES money. Both clarification, I guess I need clarification. I noticed that, the town of Pamplin stepped up and, requested for their needs. And so my question is, well, did Appomattox step up and ask for any money, number one? And I guess, well, a number 1A question would be, is the county required to share its money with CARES, or did the town get separate CARES money? I'm not clear as to how the CARES money worked or how it was distributed.
The way I understand, may I address that?
Please.
The first round of CARES money in 2020, it went to the local government. And we sent out notifications to both towns and to all the departments if there are any requests to submit those to the CARES committee. This year's funding is a little different. The formula has changed. The town is considered a non-entitlement entity. So as a non-entitlement entity, the state has received funding that they're distributing to the towns based on population. And the county will receive a different Recovery Act funding. And we had to request heirs directly through the U.S. Treasury. My understanding in the article, I think they're receiving their first round of $900 and some thousand. And any information that we get, we send that to them. As you remember, we also entered into an MOU, and we administered the CARES money for their utility program.
Any other questions, Mr. Hinkle?
I have some other, but I'll put it under supervisor comments. But I did want to thank Ms. Adams for her clarification of the meeting, because that was one of my issues. And, about the, fire department equipment. And I really didn't appreciate, Ms. Puckett claiming that the town is our whipping boy. I think that was rather inflammatory on there. And, if we expect the town and county to work together, town meetings like this don't motivate the county to be a team player, let's put it that way. But I have some other comments under my time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Holt.
Not a question, just a clarification, I guess, as chairman of the last CARES committee, the funding mechanism, just want to clarify that we didn't decide that. The feds decide that for everybody. And it funneled down from the feds to the states to the counties to divvy up amongst any localities within a county. And to my knowledge, we didn't turn down any requests from the town of Appomattox. Everything they asked for, they got money for.
I need to speak to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we did receive a request, but because it was part of their annual operating revenue budget that's accounted for, we could not fund it under the terms of federal government's criteria.
So I'll rephrase that. We funded everything that was eligible to be funded.
Right, correct.
Any other questions? Concerns? All right, again, thank you. Moving on, reports and informational items. You have before you, and I will not address these unless you have a question in regards to items 27 through 30. Any clarification or concern? Hearing none, then we'll move right on to supervisor concerns. Mr. Hinkle.
Well, has only been in the county for 10 years. I heard rumors about this Hatfield-McCoy relationship between the town and the county. And this newspaper article sure points out that it's worse than I ever expected. I want to commend Councilman Nathan Simpson on his common sense approach. And I like what he says, the bulk of the town revenue doesn't come from town residents, but from meals tax. And the meals tax is one of the biggest complaints I hear from residents in my district. And I know a lot of people that avoid Appomattox just because of that erroneous food tax. So I kind of, maybe they have an argument that they're paying tax twice because they pay real estate tax to the county, and then they also pay to the city. But I think the meals tax more than makes up for that. And then I guess my other issue would be as far as, where was the town's cooperation on the Christmas parade? They did a lot of things to try to stop that Christmas parade, and we all know what a great booster that was to our community when we were all down, with being shut in with COVID, and that brought a ray of hope to us. And it just amazed me the great efforts that the town council went to stop that parade. And so I think if, I'd like to see us cooperate between the town and the county and get this area growing, to get businesses in here, get tourism in here. But the town seems to be a stepping stone, and I don't know why. And I don't know how far back it goes. But as Charles Payne of one of the major networks said about recently, he said, June 13th allows us to unchain ourselves from the past. So I'm asking the county and the town, unchain yourselves from the past, and let's work together for a better future for this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hips. Mr. Abbott.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I would add to Mr. Hinkle's comments, I think when I read that article, I was quite frankly perplexed because I had no idea why some of those comments were made. I think since I've been on this board for the last, going on 6 years now, I think we've done a lot of things together, and we have collaborated, which kind of, I was surprised to see some of those comments. We worked together on Cortland Field, we've worked together on a number of issues. We're having joint meetings. We've asked for joint meetings. So I think I wouldn't want one article, and I don't know, I wasn't at the meeting. I wouldn't want one article in a newspaper that plucked out a couple of comments from some individuals to derail all the good work we've done. I think we've come a long way. I think we've still got a long way to go to work together. We got lots of big projects ahead of us, and I'm confident that we can work together to get those things done. But that's all I'll say about that.
Thank you, sir. The only comment I'd like to make is really appreciate, and you already said it, Ms. Adams, to the Sheriff's Department in regards to the litter that's being retrieved from our highways and byways. It had gotten to be ridiculous. But he has done a good job since the handcuffs were removed from him. Put it that way. Okay. Next is a closed session. We'll engage in that.
All right. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters. First, discussion or consideration of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of public body concerning Carver Price and animal control. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel concerning board operations in the Gladstone power line. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 3711A3 and A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
Is that second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Before the room is cleared, the board would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. Be nice to have this crowd at every one of our meetings. So be careful going home. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, officially, we will return publicly in case
Yes.
anybody wants to stay and
Yeah, we will.